The American Civil Liberties Union and other organizations are now resuming a lawsuit that they had initially filed against the Trump administration, but now they're using this lawsuit against the Biden administration in regard to the White House's decision to reject asylum seekers, citing coronavirus as the reason for doing so. So the Biden administration said that it would indefinitely continue the Trump-era policy of swiftly expelling migrants and asylum seekers from the United States, citing the rapidly spreading COVID-19 Delta variant. Now I want to stop for a second because remember, the Biden administration also initially said that they did not have the power to unilaterally extend the expired eviction moratorium. Now they turned around and changed their tune on that after they got enough backlash from progressive Democrats like Cori Bush. But this is very clear. This makes it very clear that the executive branch, the White House, they have a lot of power. They have many tools in their toolbox, especially during not just a national emergency, but a global emergency like the coronavirus pandemic. Now, Rochelle Walensky, the director of the CDC, issued a new order supporting the continued enforcement of the Title 42 Public Health Authority, which was first invoked by the Trump administration in March of 2020 to shutter US borders to migrants. By citing Title 42, US officials at the southern border are able to expel migrants to Mexico or their home countries without even allowing them to apply for humanitarian refuge. Now understand that there are like serious consequences to that because people who are seeking asylum in the United States aren't just doing it for fun. They're not doing it to entertain themselves. They're not doing it for a little trip. They're doing it because they're facing violence in their own home countries. They're worried about their own lives. They're worried about the lives of their children, and they're seeking safety. So I understand the importance of getting the coronavirus pandemic under control, but when you're dealing with life and death situations with asylum seekers, I think it's important to at least hear their case and make decisions accordingly. In fact, Human Rights First has compiled 3,276 reports of kidnappings, rape, and assaults against migrants and asylum seekers stranded in Mexico as a result of the Title 42 rule since President Biden took office in January. And going back to what this lawsuit is attempting to do, the ACLU, Races, and Oxfam are among the groups who said that they are returning to court with the lawsuit first initiated against the Trump administration for its use of a provision known as Title 42 in order to carry out expedited deportations during the COVID-19 pandemic. Initially, they were in talks with the Biden administration, hoping that there would be some progress on the matter. But clearly, with this extension of this ban on asylum seekers and this aggressive treatment of deportations, it's clear that they had to continue with the lawsuit that they had initially filed against the Trump administration.
Yeah, so a lot of this is framed by the ACLU and the press as, well, the ACLU was put in a corner and there was nothing they could do. So they're gonna have to do something about the Biden administration. There's no need for that framing. I don't care if it's Trump or Biden, it's the same exact policy. So the ACLU should be just as aggressive against Biden as they are against Trump. You don't have to be apologetic about it. In fact, you probably give them too much of an opportunity to change, right? And we know with the Biden administration, they shift with the political winds. And so if you don't put pressure on them, they will definitely do whatever is more conservative. It's just in Biden's nature. It's in his entire political history. If you watched cable news, you never would have known that during the primaries, but we told you. We explained his entire conservative track record. So when he goes into office, he reflexively goes to the conservative position.
Right.
And he adapts Trump's policies, even though he said he wouldn't. You shouldn't give him the benefit of the doubt. He hasn't earned it. And so FDR 2.0, don't be ridiculous.
I also don't think Biden wants to deal with the backlash from the GOP. I mean, we knew early on in his administration, one of the things that they really latched onto was the increased number of migrants seeking asylum at the border. And Biden really did continue with Trump's policies. The only thing that was different under Biden in the beginning was that he was accepting unaccompanied minors into the country, but that wasn't his own decision. decision. That was because 3 federal judges had ruled that the federal government had to accept unaccompanied minors at the border.
Yeah, I mean, it's damning with faint praise to say that, okay, fine, he listened to federal judges' orders. But look, I'm happy to give him credit on things he deserves. I mean, yes, that's marginally better than Trump's policy. Again, it's such little credit because the judges told him he had to do it.
He's forced to do it.
Yeah, but on other issues like net neutrality, he reversed Trump's position on net neutrality and it's back. That's great. I just give you that as a random example. So I'm happy to give him credit if he's earned it, but he hasn't earned it in this case. And so, and I don't want you to mistake what I'm saying. And everything has nuance. The ACLU, for example, is terrible on money in politics, one of the worst, right?
They consider it speech, yeah.
Yeah, it's absurd, it's absurd. By the way, they also get speech. And so that's a complicated equation at the ACLU. But on this issue, it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, they took action, and aggressive action, and they're holding Biden accountable. So whether it took a little longer than I would have wanted, okay, it's not important. What's important is they took action, and if it wasn't for them, nobody would be holding the Biden administration accountable. So great credit to the ACLU on this issue. And then to Anna's earlier point, earlier in the show, now the Biden administration, when they don't want to extend the eviction moratorium, they're like, oh, well, there was nothing we could do. We couldn't find any legal reasons, and oh, golly gee, and stuff. And when they want to do continue Trump's ban, all of a sudden they find all the legal opinions that they need. Now, in this case, it's more brazen. ACLU's right. The Biden administration is breaking the law to follow a Trump policy, right?
Yeah.
So they don't mind breaking the law here, but when it comes to the eviction moratorium, well, I mean, the Supreme Court might rule this way. Kavanaugh had an opinion over brunch that said this, so all of a sudden, I have to do the other thing. Come on, be consistent. And they're not going to be. They're hypocritical as usual because of the money.
And keep in mind that the Biden administration argues that the reason why they're rejecting asylum seekers at the border and the reason why they've become more aggressive with deportations is because they're concerned about rising COVID numbers. They want to make sure that they have a handle on the pandemic. They want to stop the spread within the United States borders. But you also have to keep in mind that by not extending the eviction moratorium, there's actual data, there are studies indicating that it has a direct link to an increase in COVID numbers because people are displaced when they're evicted. So I want to just give you this quick data from various universities who did this study. So the researchers from the University of California, Los Angeles, University of California, San Francisco, Johns Hopkins University, Boston University, and Wake Forest University School of Law found that lifting state moratoriums and allowing eviction proceedings to continue caused as many as 433,700 excess cases of COVID-19 and 10,700 additional deaths in the United States between March and September of last year, obviously. Right, so that data is important in informing the decisions that the executive branch makes. And they decided against extending the moratorium initially. But then after the backlash from Cori Bush and progressives, they decided, okay, fine, sure, we'll extend it for 60 days. We'll be a little more targeted, even though the extension would impact 90% of Americans. And so there you have it. I mean, they can't use reasoning regarding COVID when it comes to deportations and rejecting asylum seekers, and then reject that same reasoning when it comes to the eviction moratorium.
100%. On the eviction moratorium, as we proved amply earlier on, it's about the money. It's about the campaign donations. Absolutely, right? On the border issue, it's more complicated. I think it's more because they're worried about conservative reaction.
Yes.
Right? And so on that though, Biden has completely miscalculated. Now his polling is going straight down. Right? It's been going down for weeks. Kamala Harris is now underwater. She's under 50% and dropping. And Biden thinks, oh, it's because of the conservatives attacking us about the border. No, you schmuck. It's because in the beginning you were super popular. Why? What was the first thing you did? COVID relief package. What did it do? It gave direct aid to average Americans. Hence, you were popular. It's not complicated. It's really not complicated. Yeah. And now, ever since then, you've been stalling and filibustering and parliamentarianing, to make up a word, okay? And excuses, I had to do what real estate guys wanted. What could I do? There's nothing I could do. I had to do what Ted Cruz wanted and Mitch McConnell wanted and Donald Trump wanted, and now your numbers are tanking. You can't figure that out?
Yeah.
So my guess is they're gonna begin to figure it out once Biden is worried about his own self-preservation. And then maybe he might be a little bit more motivated to pass just a couple more bills, enough to try to win without actually doing too much for the average American. Thanks for watching The Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR, so those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.